Arun, is this internationally
Yeah. Yeah.
expected format that they need to give for any ERP if they're giving? It's like MC 940 something.
Correct.
So they also will have the certain kind of format.
Yeah, the same
Oh,
format.
oh, okay, got it. Okay, got it. Then it should be okay.
Yeah, and also this format can be uploaded as this one, the MT940 format, one thing, and
Mhm.
we also have the option of Excel and the other options as well. So using that, we can import those data.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And apart from that, if you want to import it as an Excel file, so Oracle also gives this ADFDA. So it is similar to the web ADA in R12. So we
Hmm.
can use that, and we can just take the data from the Excel one, which bank gives, and we
Hmm.
can just put the data in this one and we can upload. So that is also there.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. So that if anyone uses customers does use the Excel format, or they just upload the bank statement from
Yeah.
like. Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, because there are some this thing I have seen. So wherein they in scope they have said like one bank account and then they will have the additional bank account, the new one. So that is migrating from one account to other account. So wherein this is not part of scope. So wherein we suggested to use this option as a temporary this thing. So until we come to a conclusion or to a stage where we can start the development. So that we have suggested. So that is also as an option we have.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you can start the session. One. Actually, the last section we were talking about the
Yeah,
mass allocation
correct.
process, right?
Mass
Was
allocation.
that, yeah. I had the document where you can even create it for the any currency. I will share it to same email that you are providing. I can share it to that email, right? I have a white paper. I
Okay.
thought I'll. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
That
Yeah,
talks about.
or you can just put it in the group also. So that is
Oh,
also
fine. Okay, fine.
okay.
I'll do that. So.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So we'll start.
Yeah, I think Lavanya also joined. Hi, Lavanya.
Yeah, hi, Lavanya.
Hi then. Hi Arun. Yeah,
Yeah, hi.
we can get started. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, so today what we have planned to start is that payable module. Okay, so so sorry. So still we have three modules to be covered. So one is payable, receivables, and fixed asset. Okay, so the sequence we have planned is that so first we'll complete this payable module. Okay, because compared to the receivable, so I can say payable is a bit easy to cover. So that is the reason I have taken this so that we can complete this. And as a flow, we will go to the fixed asset module because whatever the asset invoice that we are creating here as a capex invoice, so that will be transferred to the fixed asset module, and from there we will create the asset, and then we'll have the depreciation, retirement, transfer, all those transactions. So we will have this one payable first, and then the fixed asset, and then the receivable module. So this is what we have planned. Okay. So we have seen till now about the ledger and those related transactions and the FRS, smart use, all those things. Okay, and the cash management, we have seen the bank transfer, reconciliation, and loading the statement, and then the cash positioning, and then the forecasting, all those things. Okay, so now to start with, since we were talking about the cash management module, we did not create this business unit. So that's the reason we have taken this cash management also. So one thing is that compared to other modules, so this is small module, and also to create the business unit. So I thought that we will have a session wherein we'll have everyone in the call so that we can start with the business unit creation and all those things. Okay, because their business unit is needed only when we give the access to the particular bank account. Okay, so that's the reason we started cash management. So now we'll start with the payable configurations. Okay, so after completing the payable configurations, we'll see how to basically do the transactions and what are the transactions we have. Okay, so to start with, so we have this business unit configurations. Okay, so now in structure, if you see, so on top we will have the ledger, legal entity, and then we also have this business unit. Okay, so now to create the business unit, so this is the navigation. So we have organization structures. So here, if you see, we have the business unit and then business unit function and then the business unit assignment. So these are the three options that we will have to give. So in terms of configuring or setting up the business unit. Okay. So the first thing is that creating the business unit. Okay. So to create it, I have come to the screen, manage business unit. So here I can give the business unit. Okay, so here we have something called default set. So now what exactly is this default set? So default set is nothing but the reference data set is called as the default set. Okay, so now to explain, so I'll just open the Excel sheet. Okay, so basically why do we need this reference data set is that if I want to control my data, so this you can compare it with the profile option in R-Tool. Okay, because in profile option, not exactly, but you can say, okay, because in profile option, what it will do is that, so let's say I'm giving option of operating unit A. Okay, so now I will have access to only this particular unit. Similarly, so here in the reference data set, it is not the same thing, but it's similar to that. So that's what I'm trying to say. So I'll just explain with a few samples. So here, in case of reference data set, what will happen is that, so I'll take payables first and then I'll come to the receivables. So now let's say I wanted to look at my transaction at my business unit level, so which I can handle it through this data access for user. Okay, so where I'm saying this is the role, that is accounts payable manager. Okay, so this is the role that I'm attaching, and here I'll say this is the business unit. Let's say A is the AMD. This is the business unit. Okay, so now I'll say for this particular user A, this is the role accounts payable manager, and I wanted to give access to this particular business unit AMD. Okay, so now this business unit can be accessible for this user. Okay, but now I have a requirement wherein I wanted to have access across the business unit or the range of business unit. So let's say I have this segregation. So wherein by location, let's say, or by region. Okay, so I have AMD, ARG, and ANN. Okay, so these are the three business units that I have. So now, if I give this reference data set as a group of companies, okay, and I attach this reference data set to all these three. So now what will happen is that, so whatever the access that I'm having, so this will be common to these business units. Okay, so now if I give reference data set access, so here when we say access, so I can give it at reference data set, I can give it at data access set or the ledger, or I can give it at the business unit or the other components also there. Okay, so basically this we call it as context. So at different context level, I can give the option in terms of accessing the business unit. So here, if I give reference data set at A group, which means this user will be able to access these three business units. Okay, but here I'll have to give it as multiple units. So option one I'll have to give, and option two I will have to give. So this is one thing that I can do with this. And second thing, in terms of configurations, so here if you see, so let's say I'm creating this payment term. So now if I give separately, let's say this is my reference data set 1, this is reference data set 2 and 3. So now I will have to create three different setups in this case. But if I have given this reference data set as a group to all these three business units, meaning I will have to just set this payment term and associate this one so that I can use this setup across these three business units, which means that I can handle my setup data and also I can handle my transaction data. At what level I wanted to have or hold my data is what determined by this reference data set. Okay, so this adds the additional security layer in terms of controlling the data. It could be the transaction data or it could be the setup data. Okay, so that's the use of having this reference data set. So now this is in the payable module. So now when we talk about the receivable module, so here if you see, so I have my customer. Okay, so the others are remain same. So which means my setup. So again here I have my payment terms and then I have my transaction type and then the receipt method. So all those setups are there, which is based out of my reference data set. So this I can do it as similar to this what we have seen till now. Okay, but then when I talk about my customer name, so it's not the same way because here I am talking about the custom reference data set that we have created, but we also have something called common reference data set and then the enterprise and then the custom. So custom is what I was referring to A group. Okay, so now here if you see, for instead of using this I can use common. So what will happen in case I use common? So I don't need to give anything here. So if you see in the system, so the payment terms by default will have this as immediate 7 days. So this is similar to the EBS, so wherein you'll have certain payment terms that is created by Oracle. So this you will get it by default. If you use common, so you don't need to give the access also. By default, you will have this common access. If I'm setting my business unit with the reference data set common, okay. But in the case of receivable customer creation, so I will not have this option of common. I'll not even see this reference data set in my list of value. So instead, what I will see is that only the enterprise, or if I want to create a custom one, so whatever the custom component that I'm creating, I can use here. So what is the use of having this is that so I can control at what level I want to see my customer data. Okay. So giving access to the particular business unit is different and giving reference or attaching the reference data set to the customer is different because so both if you see, so we will do it at the customer site level, but still if I want to probably look at my data between two different units, so now I have attached let's say AMD reference data set to customer A. Okay, so now, so this is again one time setup. So once it is done, so we'll not be able to change this particular setup. So we will have to close this customer, which means that inactive this customer, and then we'll have to create a new customer. Or if you want to have the same customer and the same customer account number, you will have to have that and create the second site. Okay, so that is the option that we have. So now if you give this, so this customer will have access to only AMD. So ARG and ANN will not be able to use this particular customer. So if this is specific to a unit, this customer is specific to a unit, then I can use this option, the custom reference data set. If not, I will have to use this option called enterprise. So enterprise is similar to common. Okay, but in this case, I'll have to specify that this is the enterprise reference data set that I'm going to use. Okay. So this is kind of an security layer that we have in Oracle in terms of accessing the data. Okay, so which we are setting up at business unit. So if I create a new business unit, I'm saying this is the reference data set that this business unit will hold. Okay, so this is how we are managing the data. Any question in this?
Arun, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead, Lava. Then.
yeah,
Okay. Arun, this reference data set, right?
yeah.
Um, you were talking about something you can define at the business unit level, ledger level, uh, or at the legal entity level. Did you talk about the data access set, or it is at the reference data level?
No, this is reference data set, not the GL data access set. So that is different. So
Oh,
this is
okay.
at the business unit level.
Okay. So, in like when you say common, it will be reference data set. When I say common, it will be at the instance level. It will be available for all
Correct,
operating units, right?
correct,
Okay. Okay. Then even when I say enterprise, it is also at the instance level. It is
correct,
available. Probably that is
correct,
only used at the uh,
correct,
receivable offering.
correct.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. So, and then you were saying about something about if you assign a customer associated with a reference set, what is
Yeah,
meaning that? Because the reference set we associate at the configuration level, right? Do you still
yeah,
do it at the master data level?
yeah. So here, the structure that we have for a party or the customer is in a way that we will have to associate this reference data set also to the customer. So for supplier, we will not have this option, but for the customers, we have this option to associate the reference data set in order to control who can access this customer.
So it is no more like at the data access level because profile option also we give, right? It can be accessed for this particular operating unit. So whoever if the user has the operating unit access, I mean the business unit access, then they can go see the sites of the business
Yeah,
units, right? For the
yeah,
customer.
yeah, correct.
So what is this reference set is overriding?
Yeah, so here in Fusion, so we will not give this option of profile option. Profile
Mhm.
option, we have it, but not for this. That is to
What?
access the business unit. So we will not give this as an profile option. So it is handled through this one, data access for user. So
Okay.
it's at the two level. So it is at the two level. So one is that associating the role, that is one thing. So let's say here I'm talking about the accounts receivable manager. Okay. So this is one thing. So this I'm associating with the user. And then the second one that I will do is that, so I'll go to data access for user. So when we say data access for user, it is not only the ledger that we are talking about. So we have something called context. So
Mm.
this context will determine at what level I'm managing this data. So it could be at the BU, it could be at the data access, or so this is the actual data access that we are talking. That is the primary ledger. Okay. So this is one thing, and then we can do it at even the inventory org level. So there are multiple components that we have in terms of context. Even the intercompany org that we wanted to give access, so we
Okay.
can do that.
Yeah, that is available, but the data access. So for example, the reference, the scenario that we are talking about now, for
Okay.
at the customer level for AMD operating unit, the
Okay.
data access for the user. So should in the context, should I have to give BU the ledger and the legal entity, or if I give the superset the primary ledger, he can how does it thing work
So
here?
here in the, yeah, yeah. So here, if I have each reference data set created for each business unit, then I will give here the business unit. I'll select the business unit. But
Mm.
in case I am giving this as A group, meaning for all these three, I'm having common reference data set. So in this case, I will not select BU. So instead, I'll select reference data set.
Got it. Because this role will operate at the BU level. So I can either give a BU, one single BU, or I can group together them in a reference set and then I give the
Correct.
reference set.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So the reference set, it is it is how the role is the reference set, the uses. I can group together the business
Correct.
unit, the organizations I can group together, and
Right.
also it controls the what kind of configuration can be shared across the
Right.
organization, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, that's a reference data sets role. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, got it.
Okay.
So when I use common, right,
Yeah.
I can still add my own payment terms apart from what
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the C payment terms,
Yes.
but it
Yeah.
will all be tagged to the common
Yeah.
reference set. What is the
Yeah.
default set?
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
so, okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
If not, then I can actually tag. So even the reference data, that lookup that comes in, right, the list of value, the reference, do we have any control for that in terms of viewing it, or whatever we define it comes across when we define the managing unit and then we choose it?
For common using.
Common enterprise, like customers, what we were saying, the reference sets,
Correct.
uh, the customers what we are defining, right? A
Correct.
group, B group, or something like that. In the list of value, when you create manage business unit, there is something, the default set that comes in, the list of
Yeah.
values that populates, right? If I have
Yeah.
multiple reference, the custom groups that I'm reference custom groups that I'm defining,
Yeah.
will that have the viewing also some having some restrictions, or it will be open for
No.
instance level,
No.
it be open for everyone, it's
That
up
will
to
be
us
at,
to use?
yeah, that will be at instance level. So there we don't have any restriction.
Okay, 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 got it. Okay. Mm. Got it, Arun. But I will have to see what is the why do we need when there's a common and then an enterprise? It is all at the instance level. Why did they have the segregation between receivables from other module, right? Why are we using enterprise and why not the common?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so that we need to do. Okay, fine. I'll read about it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
And also, like we were talking about, if one customer, at the customer level, if we associate a reference set, and if I need to change, it is not, if we save it and, or if we use the customer for any transaction, we won't be able to change a reference set.
Yeah.
Is that,
If I
or,
do
uh,
Yeah, if I do one transaction, this field will be frozen. I'll not be able to change this. So I will have to end it this and then I'll have to create the second account or the second site.
so, okay, so the reference data associated at the account, the customer level, or
Site.
customer account or customer site level?
Yeah, site level.
Site level. Okay. Okay. Got it. Hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so I'll just give here name as probably ENP reference dataset. Okay, I'll just copy this and say okay. Okay, so then the business unit name. So business unit name, I'll just use this one. And so these are optional. So probably if we want to capture the location and the manager name. So to create the manager name, so we'll have to create the employee record, and that is what will be populated here as a list of value. Okay, so if I have created there, so then I can access it here. Okay, I can attach, and then the location. So location again, it is from the managed location, so that we are creating. Okay, so if, but this is again not a mandatory setup, but if I want to set the location for my reporting need or something like that, because mostly it is the legal entity name that is printed in the report, but if we have a requirement wherein I want to print the business unit address and then I can attach the address here. So based on this, I can populate it in my report. Okay. So that's about the business unit, first thing. Okay. And then the next step is to give the business function, which means I have created the business unit. But what this business unit can do is what we are giving it here. Okay. Meaning whether this particular business unit will be able to uh, do the purchase transaction, do the payment transaction, and then doing the whatever the transaction that we wanted to perform in Oracle. So we have list of things that can be done. Okay. So if I want to enable based on the subscription that I have taken, so let's say I have taken it for AR, so I'll enable this customer payments. Or if I have taken only the GL and the accounts payable module. So I'll enable only this, the payable invoicing and the payable payment. So I have not subscribed for procurement. So I will not enable this feature, because if I enable this feature, if I do the configurations, then I'll be able to use that functionality. But whereas here it's not the same thing, because the subscription says that I can use only the invoicing and payment. So the moment that I started configuring this particular thing, that is the procurement and the requisition, so then Oracle starts to build this thing. If it is test, maybe we'll get a notification, but if it is production, probably it will start the building. So that's why we should make sure that whatever the option that we enable, it is in line with the subscription that we have made. Okay. So now we'll be looking at the receivable and then the payable and the other things. So in this case, I am taking this one, that is customer payments. Okay. And also we will look at the expense report. Okay. So before that, I'll just give this one, the primary ledger. Okay. So in this case, I'm using this one because to create this ledger, I will have to do it from the scratch because the instance got refreshed. Okay, so I'll just use this one, the US primary ledger. Okay, so because anyway we are looking at the payable and the receivable transaction, which is at the business unit level. Okay, so I will use this one called BNP business unit. Okay, so now if you see here, so this is the primary ledger that we have, and this is the legal entity that we are attaching it to. Okay, so now if I create any invoice, that is payable invoice or the receivable invoice, so this will be transferred to this particular primary ledger. So this is how we are mapping the business unit and the primary ledger. Okay, so I have given this. So I am not using the material and the other options, but I'm using this payable invoicing and the payable payment. Okay. Maybe I'll enable also the procurement. Okay, the project and the other informations we are not using. So I'll just leave these things as it is. Okay. So this is what we have given, meaning that I'm using this particular business unit only for the purpose of payables and the receivable modules. Okay. So we have created this. So I'll
Cash
just
management doesn't come here.
yeah,
The
cash
offering.
management doesn't come here. So because that comes as part of the standard one. So here what we will have is that, so we will have the receivables, we will have the revenue billing, and then the project accounting, then the procurement, payable, receivable, expense, and then the payroll module. Uh, what else we have? Yeah, and then the material procurement, these things.
Okay. So you not even the inventory management.
Inventory we have this one, material management.
Material management is inventory. Okay, got
Yeah,
it. Okay.
yeah. So even we have the service request management. So this is kind of an help desk thing that we have it as a separate module in Oracle. So
Mm-hmm.
even that is part of this business function because even that works at this one business unit. So cash management is not part of this because cash management doesn't work at business unit. It works at legal entity. So
Legal
that's the
entity.
reason we are not seeing. Yeah, that's the reason we
Okay.
are.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that is about the business functions. Okay, so now we have given the business function, and then the next thing that we have is that the business unit assignment. Okay, so we have created this reference data set. So we created something called BNB RDS. So this is our reference data set. So now if you see here, so we have list of objects that we can use here. So for example, if I come down, so I will have the customer site. I think it's on top maybe. Yeah, it is here. So we have this customer account side. So maybe if I want to use this one, or if I want to use the enterprise, I can do it. So now this reference data set, what we are setting up here, so this basically can be common for one function and custom for other function and enterprise for other function. So let's say I wanted to use this custom reference data set for others, but then only for the purpose of customer management, I wanted to use the enterprise. Then I can select only for the customer account site enterprise, which means that if I create this customer, it is common across the business unit, but the other functions are handled at reference data set, the custom one. Okay.
For vendor also, it's the same.
No, for vendor, we will not have this. So it's only for the customer, we have this reference data set controls.
Mm-hmm.
So others are like for the setup and the transactions. So we can use this, but for suppliers, we don't have this control actually.
So it's automatically defaults with the business unit that you selected, right?
Yeah,
All
correct.
configurational.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Objects. Okay.
yeah. It defaults, but if we want to change, maybe we can change this.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that is about the business unit. Okay. So then once the business unit is created, the others are the regular setups that we have. So, but anyway, I'll just uh, take you through all those things. Okay. So,
If you go to the org structure again, it is talking something about data access set, right? Uh,
okay.
so is this business
It's,
unit data access set for users? So do we do
yeah,
it here?
correct. So this is a common screen. So I'll have this option here. I'll have this option in inventory. I'll have this option in GL. Every module is associated this one, but
Mhm.
everything will take us to this one screen. So wherein here I can select the
Okay,
context.
the context gets defaulted and depending upon the offering that we
Yeah,
work.
correct.
Okay, same thing. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
but yeah, but the screen is same. So I can just say add, or if I want to search who has the access, who doesn't have
So
the
with
access.
the screen, I can also associate the context value for ledger and legal entity, right?
Correct.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, so we can just say add, and in the context, I can give the data access and I can give the ledger name.
okay, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so the next thing is that the payable related configurations. So probably we might have seen it already, or there is no change in terms of this thing. Okay, but then if I want to use this reference data set, so instead of creating a new one, so all I have to do is that if it is a standard one that comes with the product. So for example, I'll take the immediate. I'll just come down. Okay, so I'll just take this. Okay. So this is standard one which comes with a product. So if I want to use this, so since I have given the custom reference data set, so I'll have to give the reference data set here. So if I'm using common, so as I said, so it comes with the, yeah. So it comes with this. So in this case, I'll give this as BNP. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, so if I save this, I can use this payment term in the invoice. Okay. So to explain this, so it's the same thing that we have it in the EBS, but I'll just explain. Okay. On the first this thing we have installment, that is installment could be 100%, or if I want to, since this is immediate, we have said this is 100%, or let's say I wanted to split into multiple parts, 20%, 30%, and then the 30% and 20%. So I can do the splitting here. Okay, and amount due I can say here, or if I want to give the days, let's say in 7 days this will be in due, so I can say this. Or if this is on the fixed date, so let's say this is for an EMI run that I'm creating this payment term, so then I can say this is on the fixed date. It could be 10th of every month or probably the 31st of the month, so I can say those dates. Okay, so this is for the purpose of installments. To generate the installments, we are creating this. Okay. And then on the second line, we have this discount. So if this is paid on early, so let's say this payment term that we are creating for, let's assume that 14 days. So if payment is received in 3 days, then what is the discount percent that I want to give? Or if it is received in, let's say, 1 day, so what is the discount percent that I want to give? So similarly, we can give till third discount. Okay. Yeah, then the reference data set that we are associating. Okay. So that is about the payment term.
There is something at the header level, AB context and regional information, right? Is this a DFF enabled or it is
Yeah, this is
default?
DFF. This
Oh,
and
this
regional information, both are DFF.
DFF. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, so that is about the payment term. And then next thing that we have is that common option for payable and procurement. So this is similar to the financial options that we have in EBS. Okay. So we'll have to give the accounts here. Okay. So based on which system will pick the liability account, prepayment account, and all those things. So liability and prepayment, even at the supplier level, I can give. So basically it will check at first the supplier side. If it is not there, then maybe it will check at the supplier profile level. So if it is not there at the supplier profile also, then it will look for this option. So that is the reason this becomes mandatory to give, because unless I give this option, system will not be able to generate the liability. So now the liability will be generated when the invoice is created. Okay, so I'll just give this combination. Okay, so since I'm using this one called uh, US primary ledger, so I'm seeing these options. Okay, so let me call this as accounts payable clearing. Okay, and then the prepayment. So prepayment is for advance. Basically, if I create advance, so automatically from here this account is picked up. Okay, so it is prepaid expenses. Okay, it is prepayment is the name, but usually it is the prepaid expenses or the advance account that will refer to. Okay, and bills payable account is not mandatory because it's not used by all the customers. Okay, but what exactly is bills payable? It's used if I'm using this, let's say letter of credit. So if I'm using this, so I can record this transaction, or if I want to record the post-dated checks, then I can capture this as bills payable. So now the normal payment cycle will go something like this. So I will create this invoice. Okay. So for this invoice, so I will create this payment. So this payment, once it is accounted, so the entry will go something like this: liability to cash clearing. And once this is the statements are reconciled, so then I'll have the cash account hit there. Okay, but then in this case, it's not that I'm giving the payment directly. So instead, I'm giving this instrument. So this instrument has to be enhanced. Okay, so now in this case, what will happen is that, so I will book this particular payment. So this will be in future dated. Okay, so you will have the account type as future dated. So then there is a process that I will have to run. Okay, so this process makes sure that this payment, whatever I have given. So in order to track this, we have this future dated account. Okay, that is bills payable account. This will make sure that whatever the instrument that we have given, so those are encashed. Okay, so now if I want to use that feature, so probably I can. So there are two setups for this. So I'll have to enable at the payment level, and also the accounts I will have to give it here. Okay, but this is optional. And then we have the currency rate variance gain or loss. So if I'm creating this invoice today, okay, so which is in the foreign currency. So let's say my functional currency is USD, but then I wanted to basically create the invoice in foreign currency, that is, let's say INR. Okay, so it could be somewhere INR to USD. It could be somewhere 80 rupees or something. But then at the end of the period, or let's say 31st of January, so it could be 82 rupees, or it could be 78 or 79 rupees, something like this. Okay. So now this variance, whatever the variance that we are looking at in this transaction, so if it is gain, it will go to this account, or it could be loss. Okay. So now I can also give same account. If it is same account, it is going to switch debit or credit. But if I have separate accounts, then it is going to show me whether it is gain or whether this is loss. Okay. So I'll just select this account. The exchange rate variance is the account name, I think.
Type in variance.
Okay.
Yes, I'm trying. Yes. No.
Yeah, it is not there. Okay, so for time being, let me use this. Maybe, okay, for time being, I'll use this. Maybe when we do this revaluation and these things, so we'll change it to actual account. Because I'll have to go to GL and then create and do that. So for that purpose, I'm using this. Okay, and if there are any discounts, then I can use this one. Okay, so which will capture the discounts that I have given. Okay. So discount, yeah, discount taken as there. Okay, and then the miscellaneous freight charges and the retainage. Okay, so these things are there, but for now we'll leave this because this is optional setup to be done. Okay, maybe when we look at the retainage invoice, we'll come back to the screen and we will give the actual account, that is retainage account we'll give, and we'll do one transaction for the retainage invoice. Okay. Yeah, and then we have this automatic offset. So automatic offset is a scenario wherein I have this setup. So let's say my setup says, so this liability account, if I see, so this says that I'm using 101 and my cost center is 10 and my account is 22190. But then in my invoice, so let's assume that this is my manual invoice that I'm generating. Okay. So now the expense account that I'm giving there is not 10, instead it is 12. So now whether I want to change the primary balancing segment only, or I want to change all this. So when I say change, so we are picking these combinations except the natural account, that is except 22190. All these combinations are derived from my expense distribution that I give in my invoice. Okay, so it will pick it, meaning if I, so let me just put it here. Okay, so my account is something like this. Okay, so this is the combination as per the setup. Okay, liability account. So now the expense account that I'm creating is not the same. So let's say for one case, I'm saying 110 12.34.890.00. Okay, so now if I take this liability account, so this is my expense account and this is my liability account. So in this case, so this matching I have given it at probably this one, what do you call, the balancing segment value. But still, if I look at my financial statement, so it says that one is at 10, one is at 12, so which is not correct. So to avoid this, I have two options. So if it is at the only for the primary balancing segment, then I can enable this option called primary balancing segment. Or if I'm looking at the, what do you call it, except natural account, all other segment, which means that in this case, just give me a moment. Okay, so here if you see, so in case of second option, that is this one, all segments except natural account. So in this case, system will do accounting in this way. So wherein this account combination will be copied here. Okay, maybe my expense account might be, let's say 54910. Okay, so now this is my expense account and this is my liability account. So it's only the natural account that will not be copied. So apart from that, whatever the combination that we have, so all those combinations will be copied to my liability account. Okay, so this is what it is. So now this is basically derived based on this setup. But what will happen is that if I'm using this tax, so there are so country specific, it is getting changed. But for India scenario, I have seen this one. So wherein this tax accounts, this will not generate based on this rule. So this will work only for the liability account, but not the taxation. So for liability, it will work, but for taxation, again, I'll have to write a custom SLA, okay, to derive this. So what we can do is that, so we can write rule for liability, again for the tax alone. So we'll have to write a custom rule there to generate. Okay, so that's about this offset. Okay, and then this is one-time payment liability and expense account. So then we have the currency conversion. So So the same thing. So if I'm creating this invoice with let's say INR, okay, so now I will need this rate to be defined in the system. So this rate is defined based on the conversion rate. So the conversion rate as a standard, so we have this corporate, okay, but apart from that, if we want to define our own rate type, so that is also possible that we can define it. But we have this corporate, okay, so based on which we can generate the what do you call uh, the rates, okay, and this rates can be uploaded. So that is again the Excel sheet, so which we saw in the GL module, okay. So once that is done there, so we will have this uh, rates for the currencies, that is between one currency to the other currency, okay. So based on this, if I want to generate my gain or loss, so I can do that. So since we do not have this account, so it is similar to the this one, so we don't have this, okay. So I will just take this and put it here, okay. Yeah, and then we have something called the accrue expense items. So now, so when we talk about the accruals, accrual meaning we know that I have received the item, but I have not invoiced it. So that's what we are referring to accrual. But then if I want to book the accrual, so for the inventory items, definitely I'll have to book, because those are the items that will be costed to my inventory, okay. But then the other thing that I have is that the expense. So now the expense part, it's not mandatory to accrue immediately. So I can accrue immediately, or I can say I will accrue at period end, okay. So if we look at our P2P accounting entries, so we will see something called accrual. So if we don't want to accrue immediately for the expenses, so we will not say accrue at receipt, so we'll say it is accrue at period end, okay. So for now I'm not changing it, but we have even the option to accrue at period end. So there is a process that we'll have to run to generate the accrual entries, okay.
So, Arun,
Yeah.
it's not maintained at the item level.
No, not at the item level. So this is basically type of what do you call the type destination type level that we are handling this. Either it could be the period end or the receipt. So if the type is inventory, then it will accrue immediately. If the type
Yeah.
is expense, I can select whether at the this thing. So this we will not set it up at item level. So this is basically handled at the business unit level.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Then we have this self-build invoices. So self-build are something that you can run a program and generate the invoice. So this is similar to the EBs. Okay. So for which, if I want to have the gapless invoice numbering, so I can enable this. Okay. And then we have the country specific things that we can capture. So this is VAT registration number, state, and the VAT registration number, so that we can capture, okay. And this is the DFF part, that is additional information. If I want to capture, I can capture, okay. So this is our common option for payables and procurement, okay. So this is similar to the financial options. And then the next setup that we have is that invoice options. Okay. So I'll just change the scope. So scope is nothing but for what business unit I'm doing this. Okay. So here it is the BNP. So, okay. So these are the options. So this is segregated based on the invoice entry matching discount, prepayment, and approval. Okay, so these are the segregations that we have. So firstly, we have this invoice entry. So whether we need this grouping, so grouping meaning whether we want this batch to be created. So if we want this, so we can enable those checkbox. Okay, just give me a moment. Yeah, so no, yeah, so that's about the grouping. So if required, we can enable this checkbox. And then we have the document category. It's nothing but the voucher number we had in R12. So it's the same thing. Okay. So now this document category will be enabled at the ledger level. And then we have similar to the EBS, so we have this document sequencing setup. Okay, so that's the same thing. But if I want to enable the override, so I can override. So this override option, I have it for both the the invoice and the payment. Okay. And then if I want to allow adjustments to
What
the,
is invoice grouping, Arun?
this is nothing but invoice batching, wherein we have
Oh,
this batch, and under that, if I want to set some control, let's say the count or the amount, if I want to set, so I can just say. So based on which it will have this batch created. So invoice batch is named as invoice group.
okay, got it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and then we have adjustments to the paid invoice. Okay, so if I want to enable this, that is to the paid invoice, if I want to make adjustments, I can enable this option. Okay, okay. And then remit to supplier override for the third party payments. So third party payments, of course, we know. So let's say I uh, I am having this vendor A, and this vendor A is purchasing from vendor B. So now instead of paying, so vendor A has to pay to vendor B. So vendor A says that I I don't want to get this amount. You directly pay to vendor B. So instead of paying to vendor A, so we can pay to vendor B. Okay. So that's the scenario that we are talking about here. That is third party payments. So now this I can enable at supplier level. Okay. So we'll have to set this relationship there. Okay. So once this relationship is created, then we'll have this in the remit to supplier. But then if I want to override that, I can override if I enable this option. Okay. And then they recalculate invoice installments. So if there is any change after discount or this thing, so then whether we wanted to recalculate the installment, because this installment is going to be the payment amount. Okay. So that if I want to recalculate, I can say this option. Okay. And then if I don't want to create the manual invoices, then I can say hold unmatched invoices, or I can just say leave unchecked. Okay, so which will not check it to be, usually it is not used, but as an option we have it. If I want to enable, I can do that. Okay. And then for this is nothing but the account code that if I want to generate. So for this, I'll have to write rules and generate it, but we have this option. Okay, I can enable this.
So, is it that particular thing overrides your SLA rule, or what is that?
No, SLA rules, it is different. So this is basically an approval workflow which will generate the account code combination.
Oh,
But
it is
for
invoice.
SLAs, yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay, I got misleaded with invoice account. Okay, got it.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we have the preventing deletion of invoice attachments. So this
So
invoice attachment,
this we have to do particular setups, right? The workflow. It will be done in
yeah,
PPM.
yeah, we'll
Oh,
have to do it at BPM. So in the
okay.
BPM workplace, we'll have to write rules there. So based on that, we'll have to take this one.
Okay.
Okay.
So from payable from the business unit level, just checking this checkbox should be sufficient enough for invoice approval.
Yeah, this will just enables it, but if I want to use this functionality, I'll have to write rule there.
Okay. No, no, yeah, that is okay. But here, enabling is the only thing. Next is
Yeah,
everything is taken care from the BPM.
yeah, correct.
Okay, okay.
Okay. And then this option is nothing but preventing deletion of the invoice attachments. Okay. So the reason why we have this option is that so we have something called IDR. So IDR is nothing but intelligent document recognition. Okay. So now the way that this process will work is that so if I upload the invoice, so there are two ways that I can upload the invoice. So either it could be the PDF copy that I get from the supplier, okay, I will get the supplier invoice and I will upload it. Or if I want to give access to the supplier, meaning that I'm not giving access to the any business unit, any functionalities, or not even the screens. It is only the email communication that I'm permitting, which means that I will share. So basically, for this, Oracle will give us the email address. So this is again based on the subscription. So I'll be able to show, but I'm not sure if we can see that process, but I'll just explain how this works. Okay. So now we have certain configurations which we will look at a later point in time. Okay. So the way that this will work is that so I'll send this invoice copy. Okay. Oracle uses this machine learning component. So wherein this reads this file. Okay, and this creates the invoice copy. I mean, this reads the invoice copy and creates the invoice automatically. So now this probably takes 20 to 30 seconds time to process it. Okay, and this import process will create this invoice. This is the process. So now if I open this invoice which IDR has created, so this will have the invoice attachment. So it could be the PDF copy or it could be the PNG or the image file that I have uploaded. Okay. So now this setup will prevent deletion of that particular invoice attachment, because if I don't prevent, probably user can even remove that attachment. So I will not know whether this invoice is created by IDR or this is created by manual invoice or the purchase order. So I'll not have that trace. So for that reason, we have this uh, this control to prevent deletion of invoice attachments. Okay, and then we have something called duplicate invoice validation. So this, it is not only with the invoice that we have, we also have it at the supplier level. Okay, so that is something that we have it at the procurement level. So this, what it will do is that, so this will check for the duplicate invoice. So when we say duplicate invoice, so it's not going to check actually the way of human validation, but it will check in a way that if I have given this invoice number, this invoice date, and this invoice amount, so everything is same. So by default, this is going to put hold for this particular invoice, but then I can validate and I can release this hold saying that this is not duplicate invoice, or if I feel this is a duplicate invoice, I can simply delete this because I have not generated the document sequence number yet. Because once the document sequence is generated, then I will not be able to delete this invoice. I will have to only cancel the invoice. Okay. So at this point in time, so it will place the hold. Okay. So I can review and I can say this is not a duplicate invoice. So now if I want to uh, understand that if I want to make sure that system understands that this is a duplicate invoice, I can enable this checkbox saying evaluate duplicate invoice hold during validation. Okay. So this is one thing, and then the receipt acceptance days. So these are kind of an controls that we can give. Okay, and then we have the payment currency and the invoice currency. So in EBS we cannot have two different currencies, but here if I want to have two different currencies, I can have. Okay, So let's say the invoice is created in INR, but then the payment is made in USD. So I can have invoice currency as INR and payment currency as USD. So that is possible. Okay. And then the pay group. So pay group is nothing but just a classification or the categorization of this invoice so that I can use it when I run the payment batch. So I can use this as an filtration to pick the invoices and process the payments. Okay. So similarly, the payment priority. And then the payment terms. So payment terms is nothing but to determine when I want to pay this invoice or when this invoice will be in due to pay. Okay, so that's based on the payment terms. So anyway, this we can override at the transaction, but if I want to give it at supply level, so that is also possible. But this is for the purpose of defaultation. Okay. Yeah, and then we have the term date basis. Okay, so now we are saying that this is based on the days that we are giving. So if it is immediate, it is going to due today. But then, how are we understanding this is getting due today? Whether this is based on the invoice date, or the system date, or the invoice receipt date, or the goods receipt date, so which we can specify here. So this we know the invoice date and the system date, but goods receipt date and invoice receipt date we have separate column in the invoice entry screen. So if we want to generate based on that information, so that is also possible, so that based on that date. So let's say if the invoice is the backdated invoice. So let's say it's 1st of January. So I'm booking this today. So the term is 7 days. So now if I give based on the invoice date, it is getting due tomorrow. Okay. So this is one thing. Or if I want to generate this based on the system date, which means that my GL date will give me the actual date. Okay, and then again I want to have the system date to validate the payment terms, then I can do it. So if it is based on the system date, then it will be like from today it is 7 days, so it is 13th of January. Okay, similarly, but usually it is the invoice date that we prefer to use it, because we are entering this invoice based on the invoice copy that we get from the supplier. Okay, so I'll just leave this option as it is. And then we have the payment date basis. So payment date is based on the discount date or the due date. So I'll say this is for now it's the due date based. Okay, and then we have this accounting date basis. So accounting date is based on the invoice date or the system date, which means if I create this invoice today, so whether I want to see 6th of January or 1st of January is what we are saying here. Okay, so in this case, I'm just leaving it as it is, but if we want to change it to system date also, we can change it. Okay, and then this is about the budget. So budget basis meaning budget validation is based on what? Because if you see, so there are certain scenarios wherein we might have this budget created. So for the budget, as we have seen, so we have this transaction date controlled at the budget itself, but this date is nothing but the budget date will consider what date is what we are trying to understand here. Okay. So now this is given as accounting date because my accounting date is again the invoice date. Okay, so that's the reason I'm not changing it. Or if it is, if we want to give the system date, okay, so we can change the system date also. Okay, and then this is nothing but the account derivation method. So we have something called TAD, transaction account definition. So if I want to derive account from there, I can give it, but I don't want to derive from there. Okay, so I'll just leave it as it is because I want to derive from the configurations that we have given till now. Okay, and then these are like the matching options that we have. Okay, so the matching is nothing but the pivot matching I'm talking about. So I'll say this is allow final matching and allow matching distribution override. If we want to override, we can do it. Okay. And transfer PO distribution additional information. So that is if I have created DFF at my purchase order distribution. So of course header and lines will not be able to transfer, but if I want to transfer the PO distribution, so I can basically transfer those details to the invoice screen. Okay, so that is this option. So we do not have this DFF added, so I'll just leave as it is. And these are the matching tolerance limit that we can set it up. Okay. So if I have the tolerance defined in the system, so I can select it from this list. Okay, so that would be for both the quantity and amount. Okay, so for now, I'll just leave it as it is. Okay, and this discount is what we have seen in the payment term. So if I have the discount that is been taken, okay, so now if I don't want to include this discount in my tax calculation, I can say exclude. So similarly, if I want to exclude my freight also, so I can do it. Okay. And then the discount allocation. So whether it is by line or it is for the uh, single distribution, okay, that we are talking about. Okay. So that's about the discount. So if we are using discount, so we'll enable this checkbox always take discount, which ensures that the system considers the discount. Okay, so that's the option. And then the prepayment. So prepayment, again the terms that we have. Okay, and use distribution from the purchase order. So if I'm matching prepayment with the purchase order, so I'll use the distribution from purchase order. So if I want to do that, so I can enable this checkbox. Okay, and then in EBS, if you remember, so you will have this pop-up which says that you have available prepayments in the system. But then if I want to do the same thing here, so I will not be able to generate this pop-up or something like that. But if I want to see as a notification or something like a button, so I'll be able to see. So we'll see that. Okay, so we'll enable this checkbox, so which will show something like an yellow icon. So which will show if we hover over that, so it will show two prepayments are available and this is the amount. So those information we'll be able to see. It's the same thing but in the different view. Okay, so that's the thing. And then we have this approval. So approval is again same thing. Okay, so I'll just enable the approval because we will set up the approval rules also. Okay, so one thing to note here is that so for the approvals, that is payable invoice approvals, so we don't have a option of creating it in the application. So Oracle has made Excel format, so we will be able to do it only through the Excel format. So if I want to create it in the application, so the option is not there. So it is removed, if I remember correctly, 21 or something around that time it is being taken out. Okay, so we don't have this option of configuring in the system. It is only through the Excel file that will be able to load it. So if I want to set up maybe the approval group, so I'll have to take the respective BPM work list and there I can do the approval group. But then the approval rules cannot be written there. So it is through the Excel file. So that anyway we'll see. Okay. Yeah, and this is nothing but the force approval. Maybe if I want to do it manually, so I'll just enable this. If at all we want to skip it, so I'll just have this. Okay. And then before approval, so whether we need a validation, so I'll just say yes. Okay. And then this is accounting preferences. So maybe if I want this accounting, so before approval or probably if I require approval even before accounting, then I can enable this option. Okay. So accordingly, we can select this. So I'm selecting require approval. before accounting. Okay.
Um, I don't,
Yeah.
so how does it matters? Like we have the in the invoice option, we were
Okay.
talking about invoice account. What is enable invoice account workflow something? How is that being different from this approval, invoice approval? If you scroll
Yeah.
it little up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this approval is by
Invoice account coding
yeah,
approval.
so this is nothing but to generate the account code combination in the system. But this what we are talking about is the for the invoice. So in an invoice, I will have the distributions or the accounts, and also I will have this what do you call the data, the invoice data basically. So this we are referring to only the account level workflow, but this we are talking about the approval for the entire invoice. So the
So
account code is yeah,
account you're talking about the invoice the accrual accounts, right?
yeah, correct,
um, the invoice account coding workflow, so it
correct,
means it is the account code combination how you wanted it at
correct,
your invoice, right?
correct.
So if that is overriding your SLA.
No, that will not override the SLA. So if I
Uh-huh.
have SLA for that, I will not need the workflow also. So this workflow, what we are referring to is the what do you call uh, the
To the
man or
default
the
one.
yeah,
So how to get the and I'm just checking how like if you enable that, and then if you have a BPM setup, so it will help us to have the default combination for to be picked up, like either if it is for an expense accrual, if we have at a receipt or at a period, and how it should get defaulted. Will that be defaulted or
so this
any scenarios?
account, yeah, so this account code workflow is only to validate if the accounts that we have is correct or not. But this invoice approval is for the entire invoice verification. So now what we are seeing on top is part of this invoice, but not the entire invoice it is being approved. But then here we are looking at approval for the entire invoice.
No, no,
So
I'm not confused with the approval and other things. My ask is this approval. It is at the whole component of invoice, whether you are routing through a workflow or not. My question is, what is that enable invoice account coding workflow? So when you say it is enabling your account coding means is it talking about the account code combination at your
yeah,
distribution level, invoice
yeah,
distribution level?
yeah. So this
So
we are referring to the accounts that we are giving at the invoice.
okay, so what that the workflow does when if you check this, what will that do? It will go to pick up the default account code combination.
No, this is sent to a manager. So this manager will basically verify. So this is basically use a scenario wherein I give this access to the procurement team also, but then they will not know exactly the account that they are picking is correct or not. So what I will do is that so I'll initiate this approval. So this will go to the finance manager. So who can edit the account, or he can say this account is correct and he can just approve.
Oh, okay. It is like a notification
Correct,
sent to the managers on the what is an account that is being used in the distribution level.
correct.
Okay, so it's an additional information that is captured. If you enable this, it will be
Yeah,
captured. So when the invoice approval notification goes, this is also being sent along. This
yeah,
information. Okay.
yeah,
If I don't enable this, this will not be sent along. They will have to log in at each invoice level, and they go have to look in for the distribution.
yeah, correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, okay.
Yeah, even at the invoice notification, if you see, so here we will have the distribution accounts, but then this manager will not be able to edit or change this information. So only
Mm-hmm.
it is that he can enter it as a comment or something like that, saying that this account combination needs to be checked. But there in that case, so this manager will be able to edit this account also. So that's the difference between two.
So that can be done only for the independent invoice, right? If it is an purchase matched invoices, then they will have to go change there also, right?
Yeah, yeah. So this is
Okay,
only for the manual invoices.
okay, okay, got it. Okay.
Okay. So that's about the approval. So next thing is about the interest invoices. So maybe for the late payments. So if there is an interest invoices, then maybe we can enable this option. So again, this will come back and we'll say we'll enable this feature and we'll see how this interest invoice is created in the system. Okay. And then this is about the payment request, meaning the payment batch. Okay, so we can just give the pay group and these options. Okay, so this payment request is nothing but, let's say I am creating a refund for the customer. Okay, so this customer refund, so either I can close it at receivable level, or if I want to refund it to this particular customer, so I will have to create entry in accounts payable module and pay this amount to the customer. So now when this refund is initiated in the receivable module, so this will come to payable module as payment request. So so these options what we are looking at is for that particular payment request. Okay. So even the batch payment we call it as payment batch or the payment process request, but this is for the payment request or the batch or the refund amount that we get from the other module. Okay, so that's about the payment request. And then the self-service invoice. So self-service invoice is nothing but if I say pay on invoice or something like that, so I can use this option. Okay, so these are certain controls that I have. So if I want to enable backdating invoice, so I can allow this. Okay, and then limit invoice to the single purchase order, so I can enable this option. And then overbuild quantity. So these are basically certain controls that I can bring in, and also the attachment. So if I don't want to process any bill without attachment, I can enable this option, require attachments. Okay. So that is about the invoice
This
option.
pay and receipt option.
AR receipt option.
Okay. Is that the same way?
Sorry, I couldn't. Can you repeat once?
The self-billing services is similar like pay on receipt?
Yeah, pay and receipt. Same thing.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll enable at purchase order, right? So that's the same thing. Okay. So yeah, so I'll just say save and close. Yeah, so the next setup that we'll have to do is that payment option. Okay. So here, similar to that, we have this document category override, and then if I want to override the bank account, I can do it. And if I want to allow the payment before system stage, which means that if I want to create payment on 5th or 4th, so if I want to do that, I will have to enable this option. Okay, so that is one thing. So if I don't want to allow backdated payments, then I can disable this option or have this as an unchecked. Because if I do this, if there is any manual payments that is done, which means off the system, and I want to record it, so that's when I'll enable this option. Okay, and then this is again override payee, so that is for the third party payments. It's the same thing. Okay, and then account for payment. So whether I want to account at issue or clearing. So issue is something creating the payment, and clearing, of course, we know the bank statement reconciliation. Okay, so if I want to have at both the levels, I can enable here as at issue and clearing. Okay. And this currency conversion, again, same thing. Okay. And we have this bank charges, but usually bank charges are not handled in payable module, but we have this option. But usually bank charges are handled at the cash management module as the external transaction. Okay, so that's where it's been handled, but we have this option here in the payable module as well. Okay.
So we don't give any payment clearing accounts here. It will be taken from the bank account.
No, payment clearing account we will not give here. So it's given at the cash management, the bank account. So we'll give the clearing account and the,
So it is maintained at each bank account level.
yeah, bank account level.
Got it.
Because there will be a requirement wherein this bank need a separate cash account and separate cash clearing account separately. So if that is the case, so we will not be able to handle at business unit level. So for that reason, we don't have the clearing accounts or the bank account or the cash account given at the BU level. So for that reason, we have this maintained at the bank account level. Okay.
Okay, Arun.
Yeah, so I'll just say save and close. Okay, so that's about the payment options. Okay, and then apart from that, we have a few other additional setups also so that we can do it. Okay, so first thing is that this one distribution set. So this is completely optional, but if I want to create it, so probably I can create it. So what is the scenario that we will create a set? So let's say I have an requirement that if I'm integrating with the project module, so I will push the cost or the expenditure cost to the project module. So now I don't want user to select this project details manually, so probably it could lead to error or something like that. So this is only for the manual AP invoices that is created. Of course, if we create it through purchase order, so we will get those project details from the purchase order, but this is only for the purpose of the manual invoices that is created in the system. Okay, so for this, if I want to probably default the project information, I can give it here. So this is one thing, and the second thing is that if I have the regular transactions, so I know these are the account code combinations that I'm going to generate. Okay, so it could be multiple distributions. Okay, so there are two things. So one is that if I want to capture the regular thing that I can do, and second thing is that if I want to distribute the expenses. So this is similar to the mass allocation that we saw, but it is at the subledger module or the payable module. So that is if I want to pay to this particular party, so I can just distribute among the departments or the cost centers, and I can use this distribution set. So accordingly, the payment, I mean, the invoice can be processed. So these are the scenarios that probably we can use this distribution set. Okay. So now to create this distribution set, so firstly I'll have to attach or say that this is the business unit first thing, and then I can give the distribution that is either it is 40%, 20%. So based on this lines that I'm going to add, I can arrive the distribution percentage. Okay, and then the combination. So combination again I can give. So this is business specific, so I can give any combination, and then we have the project information that we can enter here. Okay, so I can give the, this is the project number, task, and so based on this I can give this naming convention, name as the project and hyphen expense, so something like that we can give. Okay.
Arun, that income tax type is a DFF enabled or it's a seeded column?
I think this is seeded column,
Okay.
but I'm not sure actually.
Okay.
I think this is seeded one because I remember I have seen it. I don't think
Um,
this is TFF. So TFF we have it here, but distribution details level need to check basically. But I remember this is standard column only.
okay, 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 got it.
Okay. Okay, so that is about the distribution set. Okay, and then we have the invoice hold and invoice releases. Okay, so this invoice hold and releases, so this we can segregate basically based on two things. So either it could be the system hold or it could be the manual hold. Okay, so system hold could be something like the distribution variance, fund check, this thing, okay, and then the quantity is overbilled, and probably the period is not open. So these are basically the system holds. So there are certain system holds that we will not be able to release it. Okay, so which you can see here. So if you see here, so for this invoice amount exceeded limit, so here I have this option as allow manual release. Okay, so now if I disable this option, I will not be able to release it manually. Okay, so this is one thing. And then the allow holds resolution route. If I want to enable this, I can do it. Or probably if I want to, so this if so this is enabled only when I use this resolution routing. So I can say days before notifying days. So I can just send the instruction also, hold instruction. Okay, so that's about it. But I can say whether I am allowing accounting or I'm allowing this release, which means that manually release. So without correcting the invoice, so whether I'm allowing this change. So that's what about it. So this is one such manual hold that is created. Okay. So similarly, I will have the system holds as well. So let me check if we have the system hold, maybe something distribution variance or something like that. Yeah, it is here. Okay. Okay, so now here if you see, so I will not be able to do any changes to this because this is system hold. So I cannot change anything here. So unless I do the correction, so system will not allow me to release this particular invoice. So that's the difference between the manual hold and the system hold. Okay, but to create this hold, so simply I can just say add, I can give the name and then the description, and I can give the options. So whether I'm going to allow manual release or not, and the accounting part. Okay, so that's about the invoice hold and releases. Okay, yeah, and then these things are related to SLA, so which we will come back. And yeah, so then we have this thing. So this is what I was referring to for the IDR invoices. Okay, so this is the email address that will be given by Oracle. So that will be something like this. Okay, so if I send this invoice to this email ID, so if I have subscription, so I can use that, but I don't think so. We have subscription since this is test environment. So if it is of an development or the production or something like that of a customer's account, so then we will have the subscription. So here we will have the image email. So image email is nothing but Oracle's dedicated email address to which we can send this invoice copy. It could be the scanned invoice copy or it could be the PDF copy. So now if it is PDF copy, we don't have any issue. Oracle will take that and process it and creates the invoice automatically. But then if this is an physical copy, so where I scan this and convert it to image, okay, so this scanning part, I'll say this is probably the JPG, okay. So there are some cases that system accept it and some cases system will not accept. So there are recommended resolutions that Oracle has suggested. Okay, so if we upload in that particular format, it will allow us to process those invoices and create it in the payable module. Okay, so this is how basically this will work. Okay, and then we have this business unit defaultation option, because here if you see, so we are sending this as an email, but this user who is sending this particular document might have access to 2 or 3 business units also, in a rare case I'm saying. So he might have this access, but then how system will understand that this is the business unit that needs to be picked up? So let me just pick this one, or let me try to pick recipient email address. Okay, so I'll just say edit. So now if you see here, so if I say add, so this is where I'm mapping the email address and the business unit. So now if I say I'm receiving this email from this email address, then I wanted to map or create this invoice with this particular business unit. If I'm not doing this, so I will have to give this business unit every time this invoice is created in the system. Okay, so these are basically the default options that we have. So if I want to properly default it, I can map it here.
So, Arun, then this image email, will it be different for each business unit?
Yeah, it will be, I mean, different in the sense.
No, here there is a field called image email, right? So this image email, once it is gets scanned, it's emailed from this one, right? From this workflow, the document
Yeah, a document will be sent to this email address.
sent to this email address, and
Yeah,
then from this email address, it will be sent across to different operating unit, business units, right?
yeah, correct.
So how do the system differentiate which invoice should go to which business unit? Because we are just saying it is a recipient email thing, right? So
Yeah.
this image email will be different for each business unit, or
Yeah, that's what. So if this comes from user A, so this user A will have one email address. Okay. So now this should go to this business unit. And
see,
if this comes from the email address 2, so this should go to business unit 2. So this
so
is
this
how,
no, my question is, if you're categorizing at the user level, how do the users know, like this image email, it will receive the PDF and it will send to this user?
no, this will not be sent to the user, but instead automatically this invoice is created. So if, so here we don't have this multiple options. So let's say one user who has 2 business unit access, so then this option will not work out. So in that case, we will have to handle it at the email, which means that when we send this email, so we have the subject. So in the subject, I'll have to specify this is the business unit. So the way that I will specify is that, so I'll give first the business unit name, and then I'll say underscore, and then I can give my own naming. So now this, before I enter whatever I'm entering as a business unit there, and I say underscore, so that is where system stops and understands that this is the business unit that I need to categorize this invoice.
At what level are we speaking here, Arun? Like for example, I get an electronic invoice from the supplier, and then
Okay.
it is being received in this the image email, whichever comes with an instance, the URL number, right? Where
Yeah,
when I get the digital, yeah, so the supplier will send to this EUTH
yeah,
hyphen. So the digital image will be sent to this image, this email ID. So from
yeah.
there, when it gets downloaded, how do the users, where the transformation occurs, like where is the mapping occurs? Okay, this is at the different BU1 or BU2. How do the it is, there'll be a one back office where they will have to, one or some employee sit, and then they go through all this email, and then they map it to different the
No,
edit the subject line, and then proceed to each business unit. How does it happen?
no. If supplier is sending to this email address, So
Uh,
no user has to sit and monitor this,
uh,
because when this attachment is sent to this email address, so this
mm,
is Oracle's dedicated email address which converts this document into invoice. So this
okay.
process is completely automated. So when this, so let's say I have supplier 1 and supplier 2. So now supplier 1 is sending this invoice. So I know this supplier will send this invoice to, let's say, the business unit 1. Okay, because let's say the supplier is sitting in one in California, one in New York. So now if I get email address of New York, so I will map here as a New York business unit. Okay, so now if this supplier sends this invoice to this email address, automatically Oracle process this invoice and creates the invoice automatically. So user doesn't need to monitor doesn't need to do any activity here. It's only about verifying the invoice details, if it has captured all the details in the invoice screen or not. So that's the only thing that user will have to do.
So if in your scenario, if the same supplier, if he supplies to both two different business unit, then how does it work?
Same supplier does it to two different units. So that's what. In that case, when the supplier sends the email,
Mm.
in the email subject, it should
He
be
has to take
specified.
care. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. His
correct. He has to.
responsibility to mention the business unit. Okay.
Yeah, he has to give the business unit in the subject and say underscore, and then he can write his content.
Okay. So if you could close it and then go back to that override default business unit, that LOV, right?
Yeah,
Uh, so you have email routing attribute, sender's email address, recipient email address. So
correct.
that's when I was talking about the digital image, digital invoice shared by the supplier, then
Yeah,
the supplier will have the recipient emails, so which will actually help me for the business unit mapping, right?
correct.
Okay, so this will be this image email will be, this is what okay, it will be in by default they will, this will be routed through this email, right, the supplier.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, the next one is when we have the physical image, the hard copy of the invoices,
Okay.
then when we scan it, somebody from our office, the business office, they scan it. When
Okay.
they scan it also, then we can actually route through the recipient emails to which
Correct.
business unit it has to go. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it. So even at that point of time, this image email will be operated, right? Because when I scan it, the scanned image will go through this email only. Huh?
Yeah. Correct. Correct.
Okay, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that is about the business unit defaultation or the business unit mapping with the user. Okay, and then these are certain controls that we can have in terms of
Mm.
creating the invoice. Okay, so now I have this invoice copy, so wherein I have this tax also as part of this bill. So now whether I want to recognize this taxes or not is what defined here. So now if I say recognize tax, which means that it is going to create tax automatically here. But provided I don't have this taxation that is generated from my tax module. So if I don't have that, I don't have issue. So I can say recognize tax amount. So if I am creating the stats based on my tax rules written in my tax module, then I'll have to uncheck this particular option, because this is going to create third line. Let's say I have two lines. So one is my actual line, second one is right, and third line is my tax details. Let's say VAT. I'm adding VAT as third line. Okay. So now if I say recognize tax amount, which means it is going to create three, and then my tax engine runs when I validate it. Okay, so which means that I'm creating tax twice. So based on that, we will have to enable this option, that is to recognize tax. Okay, so
If there is
this,
a discrepancy in the tax amount, how that can be handled? If I'm using the tax engine,
okay.
so that can also be handled, right? Then that becomes.
No, if
Uh,
there is any discrepancy, then we will have to look at our setups, because this will not handle that. So this will
Yes.
only,
No, how that is being done but the user level, because the user may not know, right? When it comes through the email, the invoices comes. So do they, before validating, they go check at the invoice, the physical invoice, what is the invoice tax amount and what
Okay.
is there in the
Okay.
system? Do
Yeah, understood. So in this case, they will have to do this manual edit. So if we go to this manage taxes, so where we will be able to edit the invoice amount. So referring to the actual invoice sheet or the invoice copy that we have, so we will have to edit it manually. So we will not be able to handle it in a way that automatically system adjust to the invoice amount, because in this case if I say recognize tax amount, it is going to record whatever the tax that I have in my invoice copy. That is straightforward case. But if I'm disabling this option, if I want system to recognize and adjust the tax, but that system will not do it, so we'll have to do it as a manual entry there.
so will system will throw any alert? Okay, in invoice it is a different amount, and what is there in the system is different amount. There is no
Yeah.
alert.
Yeah,
Alert
I
will
mean,
be.
alert in the sense we don't have alert or something like that, but if I load it as it is going to say needs revalidation, because here if you see, let's say my tax amount that system has generated is let's say 110 rupees, but then actually in my invoice copy the tax is 100 rupees. So now this will affect my the total invoice and the line amount and the everything. So now when this invoice total that is lesser than or more than whatever it is, so system will automatically go in variance. That is
Okay, that
line.
okay, the system hold will be there. So
Yeah.
the okay, got it. That's the okay. That's where the business will start looking into those invoices.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yes. And what is this import only paired lines for matched invoices?
Import.
The last line, yeah, the right options, the right side, the last thing.
Okay, so this is basically if I have let's say associated lines, if this invoice is matched one, that is matching with the purchase order, because when
Mhm.
I get this copy, so I will also have this purchase order number. Okay, so now if I want to compare it and say that this is matching with the purchase order and this thing. So now if this lines are matching, only then I wanted to import this invoice, or else I don't want to import this invoice, then I can enable this option. So which will say that only the matched lines are basically imported.
It matched lines means at the item level, or how, what, in PO, if you have multiple items, each
Okay.
item will have one distribution account, right? The invoice will not have the distribution account. It will have only the items.
So
So it
yeah,
will go match at the item level.
no, not at the item level, the
Uh,
total PO and the total invoice amount that we are looking at.
oh, okay, okay, okay. The invoice, okay. Okay, got it. Okay. So it's called paired lines. So I carried away with the lines. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So then we have the freight amount. So again, it's the same thing. So whether we want to recognize the freight amount and then the lines for the matched invoice and then the lines for the unmatched invoices. So how do we want to record those lines? So it's what handled here. Okay. And then if I want to validate the legal entity, then I can enable this option, okay, which will validate with the master. That is one thing. And then if I want to calculate tax during the import, which means that the Oracle stats module will calculate, but then I don't want to do it manually. Instead, when I import it, automatically I want system to calculate the tax. Then I can enable this option, calculate tax during import. So once this is imported, then it comes with the tax, but the tax is not from the invoice copy, but instead this is from the setup that we have given. Okay. And then if I want to have this by default in incomplete status, we can have, because incomplete status for these IDR invoices will be there when there is some missing information. So let's say for the first time I'm uploading this invoice, so which is not the PDF copy. So because the PDF copy is what is the recommended document given by Oracle, but then it also allows us to use this one, that is to scan as an image and upload also. So now if some of the information is not captured, so let's say vendor site is not captured, or let's say vendor name is not captured, so then system will have this in incomplete status. This invoice will be imported, but the status of the invoice will be incomplete. Okay. So now instead of doing this, so this is standard one, but I don't want any invoice to be in never validated, but instead I wanted this to be in incomplete. So irrespective of the data that is being picked up and the processed, so I want all those invoices to be incomplete, then I can enable this checkbox. Okay. And then they create single line for the utility bills and the service bills if I want to create, so then I can create that. So these are basically the controls how the document needs to be recognized. Okay. Okay, so so this is optional. So this is kind of a domain name. So this is Oracle's standard one. So this we will get it from Oracle. So whatever the email domain that Oracle gives, so that's the one that we'll be using basically. So this domain is nothing but this one after FA, whatever we have. So this is what we are referring to, the domain name. Okay, so this will be given by Oracle. So that's the same thing that we will attach it here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that's it about the IDR options. Okay. Okay, I think enable this option.
You can just cancel it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we have the tolerance maybe. So I'll just show what are the tolerance that we have. So it's simple. That is tolerance is by amount or the percent that we can define. Okay, and these are basically for the received item or the ordered item, or if there is any difference in the conversion rate. So those things are the total header amount. So these are
So
the
this is common across the business unit, or is for this business unit?
no, this is not for the business unit. So this is global kind of at the
Mm.
instance level.
Mm.
Okay. Okay, so this is one thing.
Where
Uh,
do we mention invoice tolerance, right? Like
yeah,
then, if you see if it is a global, then we
yeah,
have multiple things defined, isn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah.
you cite something with UK. So where do I associate? Do I have to associate it at the invoice option?
Invoice options. So there,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Got
amount and quantity. Right? Yeah, that's it.
it. Okay.
Okay, and then we have this calendar. So calendar will see when we see this withholding tax options. So by
Mm.
then we'll have to create this withholding calendar, and then we will have to do the configurations in the system. Okay, when we see that, we'll see calendar. Okay, so apart from that, these are the basic configurations that we have if we want to process the invoice. Okay. So now we have the payment specific setups. Okay. So what are the payment?
Arun, can we see the payment next week?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, sure.
nine. It's
Yeah, sure.
morning 9:45 here.
Okay,
My
okay, okay,
daughter is telling me she's not letting me to concentrate.
okay, okay. No
I'm
issues.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no issues.
Okay. Yeah, I will go through what we gone. So I
Oh,
have some queries. Let me read through it, and
okay,
then if I have more need more clarification, I'll come back to you on that.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I have noted few things for me to go through with this weekend.
Okay.
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 Thanks, Arun.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
your time. Yeah, take care. Bye.
Yeah.